Alright, welcome back to another video. So today's video starts a new series. I just picked up this 2015 F150 XL Super Cab model with 4-wheel drive, and it has the 2.7 liter EcoBoost twin turbo engine. So I think this series will interest a lot of you, especially with the lower trim level trucks like the XL and the XLT and maybe the STX. So obviously in XL, this was meant to be kind of like a work truck, base model truck. They even have the black plastic front end on it. So I'm going to be doing some incremental upgrades to both the exterior and the interior of the truck. So it looks like it's been upgraded, the wheels, to a set of aluminum wheels. Normally these come with steel wheels. Probably was a factory option. So it looks like it's optioned out decent on the inside. I mean, most trucks nowadays come with a lot of standard features. It has power windows and locks. It does have the 4-inch screen sync system on it. It has rear parking sensors, but no backup camera. It was 2015. Backup cameras were not required. So your model might have a backup camera and it might not. So in today's video, I'm going to be upgrading a major upgrade to the entertainment system. So I'm going to be replacing the 4-inch center stack sync system here with the factory Sync 3 8-inch navigation system. Okay, and along with that, I'm going to be adding a backup camera. Part of having a little bit higher mileage truck is, you know, you can get a steering wheel that's worn down. So it had this cover on it when I bought it. So I'm also going to be replacing the steering wheel. That will not be in this video. Look for other videos on steering wheel replacement. I will also be upgrading this 2-inch instrument cluster to a 8-inch Lariat instrument cluster. And I'll show you how to do that for cheap. You don't actually have to spend as much money as you think to do that, as long as you can find a nice used model of a junkyard. And I'll even show you how to change the mileage, but that'll be in another video. So what I'm going to be starting with today is installing a factory style backup camera. All right, so here we are at the back of the truck. You can see this is where the backup camera would be on a factory model. So I purchased this camera here, and it completely replaces this whole latch, and we'll have to run this up into where the stereo is. And this will get power from the front of the truck, and it will integrate into the 8-inch Sync 3 system that we're going to be installing. I did buy all of this parts from 4D Tech, and not sponsored by them in any way. I did pay full price for everything that I bought, but I'm just going to kind of show you how I'm going to go about upgrading the truck. The plan is throughout all these series of videos to show you how you can basically upgrade your base model F150 using Ford parts into like a higher trim level truck, maybe retaining some of the things that you like about the lower trim levels, like the look or the tires, the wheels, or whatever. All right, so the first part of the video here is going to be installing the backup camera. If you don't need to install a backup camera, you have a factory one or maybe another aftermarket one already, you can skip ahead in the video. So the first step, I need to take out all these fasteners here to take off this access panel on the tailgate. And it's nice, even though it's got the factory bed liner, they didn't bed line over these fasteners, so we should be able to take this off. All right, so we'll use a T25 Torx for these. All right, so the next thing you have to remove is, if you look in here, it's kind of hard to show you. There's two 10mm nuts, one on each side. And basically what they do, they're what holds this whole thing in place. So we're gonna remove those 10mm nuts, and then we just need to get this tailgate rod off so we can remove the whole assembly. I'll show you here in a second. All right, so once you get that, just pull straight down. There's a couple of clips that will undo. Now we just need to disconnect this lock rod right here. There's a couple ways to do that. Right, so we got this little plastic clip. You gotta be really careful not to break it here. So kind of loosen the metal like that, and you can work it out like that. So that's how we get that one off. Alright, so that's why these just switch places. Obviously. Same thing to get this one back in here. I'm going to put it in the slot. Alright, so get that one pushed back in there. Just get it pushed in. The bottom should snap in. You don't want to break it. There's like a little lip that sits in. And then we'll go back up atop and we'll put those 10mm nuts back on there and tighten it down. Okay, so we've got this wire that comes out of the camera. You can see there's this other wiring harness that already goes down, and what it does is it comes out through here. So what we're going to do is we just want to run this wire down along that wire and use some zip ties or some electric tape to kind of tape it out of the way to that wire so it doesn't get bound up in any of this mechanism. And then we'll want to run it, pass it through there. There's some options with these wires. You know, if you need to reverse the mirroring or the backup lines, we're gonna leave all that alone for now. And it does disconnect from the plug here, so we can get this down through there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna work on, I'm gonna put the wire in some of this plastic loom, and we're gonna run it along the frame towards the front of the truck, down the driver's side. All right, so from the tailgate, I fished the wire through right here. Got this piece of clothes hanger, metal clothes hanger. Fish it through the tailgate. So now we're underneath the truck. You can see. Pull this all the way through. All right. So now we'll disconnect it. And like I said, I'll start running it inside of that tubing. And we're going to go over and then up along the driver's side of the frame. Just keep it away from any exhaust parts, hot moving parts, etc. Use, you know, zip ties. Keep it in some of this loom like this, and it should be just fine. All right, so this is the part that has to run up to the front of the truck. Obviously, this end is what gets connected in the rear, but since this end is a lot smaller, we want to come up, find the grommet we need to go through in the floorboard on the driver's side, and drill this size hole as opposed to a hole big enough for that in the grommet. And we'll punch this through and pull it back to where it needs to be, and then we'll work forward from there. All right, so we're going to come in here to the inside. We're going to pull up the trim. Just be careful, just kind of lightly pry up on it. It's just using metal clips to hold it in place. This will give us access to under here. So we can look for some dirt I need to clean out. All right, so there is a grommet right here, and that one does go to the bottom of the truck. I'll show you. You'll be able to see that. So that's probably where we're going to try to poke through. Right through the middle of that. So you just need something sharp. And then, obviously, it'll put us in the perfect spot. We'll run the wire up under the dash and over to the radio. This razor here. Poke a hole down through the middle of that. Test it with the larger Phillips head. Yep, works. So now we just take our wire, poke it on through. Right there's where it comes in the loom out of the bottom of the truck, and you can see there's already a harness on the frame here. So I'm just going to zip tie that to the frame, and we're just going to work our way back, even if we need to go inside the frame as we go towards the back. Alright, so I've got it done. It's run all along the frame, zip tied to other wire harnesses or brake lines wherever necessary. Just make sure, like I said, you keep it away from anything hot and moving. Then it comes up here. So now we'll just remove this little kick panel plastic trim. We just want to tuck it up again, keep it away from the steering shaft and everything. We're just going to get it over into where the radio is going to be, which brings us to the next part here. So we need to disassemble and remove the old radio. Okay, so you can see I just pulled this rubber mat up. There's, it looks like some 7mm bolts that need to come out. Once those come out, we can remove this top tray. Then it'll expose the fasteners for this, and then we can pull it down. All right, so once you remove these two screws, you pull up on this. Now there are these 3 tabs here, so it helps if you use a plastic trim removal tool, stick it between there and pull that up. And just kind of set that aside. You'll see that reveals 2 more 7mm bolts that we need to take out to get the faceplate off. Alright, so once we have those out, we're just going to grab this firmly and kind of pull right down the front. And you can see the whole thing kind of pops off. Now we can just unplug our connections. So there's just these little tabs you have to push. All right, and that's that whole piece. So these switches at the top will have to be transferred to the new panel. So you can go ahead and pop them out now. There's just little clips that hold them in place, as you can see. Yeah, it's just these little tabs that hold them in place there. Traction control and your hazard lights. All right, so now we're going to remove these 4 screws here. And you can see there's another harness behind here. You have to move that, rotate it like that, and then it will come out. And we're obviously not going to use that anymore. All right, now we're going to remove these 2 other 7mm screws. This is the sync module. All right, you want to unplug all the connectors. That. This is a USB connector. We're going to unplug that. Okay, so again, that'll no longer be used. All right, so now I need to take off the 4 7mm screws holding the radio in. I'm setting all these screws in a safe space. I'm just going to pull out the stereo, and we want to just disconnect the 26-pin connector only. I also need to remove these 2 screws down here because we're going to be changing out the USB plug. Alright, so I took these 2 7mm screws out and kind of just popped loose the AC vents. They're just pushed on. I didn't take them off completely because they're secured at the bottom. Enough to where I was able to just bend this down a little bit and reach in here. There's a tab on the top here. You can see right there. I push it with my thumb. And the same thing on the bottom. There's 2 of them. You have to compress those and pop this out. And then there's 2, actually, there's another wire that's connected for the line in port and then the USB port. But we are not going to be, this whole thing could actually be removed, or you can just unplug it here and just leave the wire back here. This is not going to be reused, so we won't even need any of this cable. That's where we're going to snap in our new dual port USB. All right, so in the kit, you know, like I said, we removed the old USB port, tucked the wire away, here's the new one that it comes with. It also comes with this USB cable that we're gonna plug in, and then here's our main harness. So we're gonna go ahead and unbundle the harness, and we're gonna start routing everything where it needs to be. Like I said, this will intercept into that 26-pin harness that we removed. I'm also going to be installing this can opener unlocking device. What this is allows navigation and motion and stuff. So when you're driving down the road, you can input navigation. You don't have to stop. We also need to install this aftermarket GPS antenna that plugs into the radio. The best place to put it is right up here somewhere. You can stick it even to like one of these heater vents. It needs to be, or right on top of this metal bracket here. And then when that sticks back down, the key is it just has to not be obstructed by anything metal. I mean, even if I can stick it on here, that's probably where I'll put it. Just find a good spot and use double-sided tape to stick it down. You don't have to stick it on the outside of the dash where it looks ugly. It'll work fine underneath here because it's just plastic in between. So this GPS antenna is magnetic, so there actually is just enough clearance, if you just set it right on that metal right there, that this top piece will lay back down on there, as long as you don't have a speaker right here. So here's the harness. So this is going to be this part up here at the top is going to connect to the back of the new screen. Obviously this is for our backup camera here. And what I'm looking for is the harness that's going to plug into our new. This is it. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, so this is going to run down with the USB cable. All this stuff is plenty long. So I'm going to take that and the USB cable. Pull this out of the way. There's that. So now you can go ahead and snap that in place. Alright, so this thicker wire right here, I'm going to run down to the radio tuner. Alright, so this is the correct 26-pin connector that needs to be removed from the back of the radio. We'll run our harness down here. This white connector connecting here plugs into that. And then this plugs into the back of the radio. Like that. So should be our only connection for the radio. So we can kind of set that in there for just a second. Alright, so we're looking, so we find the wire that used to plug into the back of like the heater control bezel, and then find this new T harness that came in the kit. That's going to plug into there, like that. And then this is what will plug into the bezel instead of the one that was there, along with that. Isn't really hard, it's just gotta keep everything kind of organized here. Alright, so last but not least, we have this large connector that goes into the sync module, or the screen module. So that's gonna go into there. Just kind of push it down, and then we'll lock it in with that. And obviously, this will plug in to the back of the new screen module here, along with our USB connector and our GPS antenna connection. But first, since we're installing the can opener, we're actually adding another layer to this. So again, we're going to be putting in another T-harness interface here. Like that. And then this is what we'll actually plug into the back of the A-pin. So we'll just have to zip tie this up out of the way in here. There's going to be, you know, there's going to be plenty of space, but there's a lot of wires we get to tuck once we start connecting everything here. So just keep that in mind. Before we get going too crazy though, I want to try to get my backup camera wires up in here because I need to show you how we do that. All right, so I'm using a little fish to reach down there, pull my wires up for the backup camera. And then they'll be up, and just make sure you like zip tie them up under the dash here so they're not in the way of anything. That's all there is to do that. Okay, so how you hook up the backup cameras, they include this little accessory power interface. What this does is this plugs in between the cigarette lighter, so you disconnect power point, and it looks like I could probably use this one right here. I'll have to check for sure. That or the one down there for sure. And then, you know, that plugs back into the cigarette lighter, and then here's your power and negative for your camera, which we will splice into this wire here, which then plugs obviously into your camera. And then this is the wire that comes from the harness for the sync system. This is the one that comes from the camera, so they include this male to male wire to hook those two together. It'd be nice if one of those was just male, then you could just plug it right in. But all right, so now I'm making my nice little power connection here for the camera. So the power point connection in the Ford default, it turns off after so long. It stays on when the truck turns off. So ideally this isn't, not really crazy about the camera just sitting back there on for no reason when the truck's turned off. But this is how the manufacturer has it set up to work, so I guess we'll roll with it. I just hope it doesn't burn out the camera quickly by having it on all the time. So we've got that. Put a little tape on those. Just tie down to make sure they're tight. And I did just interface into the back of the PowerPoint right here. You could have done either one though. Alright, so now I'm ready to start making connections. You just don't want to forget anything. So start finding our USB plug. And so we plug it into the darker colored USB connection here. Okay, so here's GPS antenna. Yeah, it goes like this. Okay. Now we've got our main plug here. Alright, so in theory that should be our connections. And don't forget, when we're putting our dashboard back in, we have to make all these little connections to it. Alright, so there's 6 bolt holes here. We'll use 6 of the screws that we took out that held the sync module and the other screen in place to screw that in. So the radio's done, everything's done with the radio. So I'm putting everything back together. Alright, and last but not least, we'll go ahead and plug in our final 4 plugs here. Okay, now we'll plug in our 2 plugs up top. Plug them into the right ones. Guess I should take the plastic off the screen. Okay, so before I screw everything down, just will give it a shot, try it out, make sure it works. Okay, initial setup. Okay, so this uses the radio that you already had. That's why all your stations and stuff will be there. It's just communicating with the new module. So good thing is it works. If you got navigation, your navigation will be there. It will take a little while to update, so you need to drive around. I'm not in Michigan right now. All right, so everything's working good. You can see I've got, you know, Android Auto. Just trying that out real quick, make sure that works okay, which it does. Paired to my phone automatically through Android Auto. It works the same with Apple Carplay. Go ahead and try out the backup camera, obviously, make sure. So I put it in reverse, you can see everything behind us. So that works good. So everything works. That's really all there is to it. It's actually a relatively easy install as far as radio installations are concerned, that you can get done within an hour or two in your driveway. The hardest part obviously is the backup camera if you don't have one, but if you have a backup camera, they actually include another harness in the kit. That is your backup camera retention harness, which is right here. So that would just plug right in to the screen and then into the camera harness cable. So alright, so I'm not going to go through all the features of Sync 3. You know what it is probably if you're looking at this. But everything works good. Remember, this is the first video in a series of videos on the interior and exterior upgrades on my F-150. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see the rest of those videos. Be sure to leave a comment, like the video. Until next time, we'll see you later.